The corridors of global power are once again echoing with whispers about India, a nation that's not just rising, but rewriting the rules of geopolitics in real time. As the United States, China, and Russia compete for influence across continents, India is quietly as quietly polar world order, one where it no longer follows the playbook written in Washington or Beijing, but drafts its own. The past few weeks have seen developments that underline this transformation. Energy deals defying sanctions, diplomatic masterstrokes in the Middle East, and trade negotiations that put India at the heart of the global economic reset. The question on everyone's mind now: how did India reach this level of influence so fast, and what's coming next? It all begins with a shift in strategy that the world initially underestimated. For decades, India was seen as a cautious democracy, preferring stability over risk. But under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, that image has changed completely. What the world sees now is a nation that's assertive, unapologetic, and fiercely protective of its national interest. Whether it's purchasing discounted oil from Russia, expanding defense ties with the U.S., or leading the Global South's voice in climate and trade talks, every move reflects a deep understanding of power dynamics. This assertiveness has not gone unnoticed in Washington. Sources within U.S. diplomatic circles say that India is now being discussed not as a partner in waiting, but as a power that must be managed. This subtle but crucial shift shows how India's decisions, particularly in energy, defense, and technology, are impacting U.S. global strategies. In fact, American officials privately admit that without India's cooperation, containing China's influence in Asia is almost impossible. That's why, despite occasional tensions, the U.S. continues to court New Delhi with high-level visits, defense agreements, and investment promises. But India isn't giving anything away for free. The Modi government has made it clear that partnerships must be based on equality, not dependency. When the U.S. raised concerns about India's oil imports from Russia, India's response was sharp and simple. Our citizens' energy security comes first. That statement, subtle as it was, sent a powerful message. India would cooperate with the West, but it would never be dictated to. It was this kind of bold realism that cemented India's status as a truly independent global player. While the West is learning to adjust to this new India, Russia has embraced it wholeheartedly. Moscow views New Delhi as its most dependable Asian partner. The two nations continue to expand cooperation across defense, energy, and technology. Interestingly, while the West sanctions Russian oil, Indian refineries have become a critical middleman, refining Russian crude and exporting it globally, often to the same countries enforcing those sanctions. This legal yet strategic move has baffled Western policymakers and impressed global economists alike. It's economic chess, and India is several moves ahead. At the same time, India's presence in the Indo-Pacific has grown immensely. Through the Quad Alliance, which includes the US, Japan, and Australia, India is countering China's expansionist moves while maintaining its independent stance. Unlike others, India doesn't seek conflict, it seeks balance. Its message to the world is clear: power doesn't have to mean aggression. It can mean strategic stability. Beyond geopolitics, India's economic rise is equally spectacular. With one of the fastest-growing economies in the world, foreign investors are pouring billions into India's infrastructure, manufacturing, and digital sectors. The government's Make in India and Digital India initiatives have turned the country into a magnet for global capital. American tech giants, European automobile firms, and Middle Eastern sovereign funds are all betting big on India's growth story. In the process, New Delhi is turning itself into the alternative to China that the world has been desperately seeking. But perhaps the most fascinating part of India's rise is its diplomacy, a unique blend of firmness and finesse. At international forums, India no longer plays defense. Whether it's the G20, BRICS, or the United Nations, Indian representatives are setting the tone, not following it. When Western leaders talk about climate commitments, India reminds them of their historical responsibilities. When discussions on global finance emerge, India advocates for reforms that give developing nations a fair voice. It's a confident, commanding presence that signals a new world order, one where India is not just a participant, but a leader. Even in regions far from its borders, India's influence is expanding. In Africa, Indian investments in renewable energy and healthcare are winning hearts and markets. In the Middle East, India has balanced relations between Israel and Arab states better than almost any other major power. Its strong ties with the UAE and Saudi Arabia are matched by strategic cooperation with Iran. This diplomatic dexterity allows India to be everywhere without being entangled anywhere. Meanwhile, the Indian diaspora continues to amplify its soft power. From Silicon Valley CEOs to British parliamentarians, Indians around the world are shaping narratives, policies, and industries. This global network is India's invisible asset connecting economies, cultures, and politics in ways no other country can replicate. Back home, India's military modernization is accelerating. Indigenous weapons development, advanced space technologies, and joint exercises with major powers have turned the Indian armed forces into one of the most capable in Asia. The country's naval presence in the Indian Ocean, bolstered by collaborations with the U.S. Navy and Japan, sends a clear signal India is ready to defend its interests wherever they lie. But every rise invites challenges. China's growing aggression along the border, Pakistan's ongoing instability, and Western skepticism about India's neutrality remain key tests. Yet each confrontation so far has only reinforced India's resolve. The more pressure it faces, the more strategically resilient it becomes. Analysts call it the Indian paradox, a democracy that's both idealistic and pragmatic. Spiritual, yet fiercely strategic. India's foreign policy today doesn't fit into Western molds. It draws from centuries of civilizational wisdom, diplomacy, rooted in dialogue, but never at the cost of dignity. Even the World Bank and IMF have acknowledged India's growing role as an anchor for global growth. In a world struggling with inflation, energy crises, and supply chain disruptions, India stands out as a stabilizing force. The rupee trade systems being developed with Russia, the UAE, and Africa could eventually challenge the dollar-dominated global financial structure, a move that would shift economic power toward Asia. And it's not just about economics or defense, it's about perception. The world now sees India as a country that doesn't react to global changes, it drives them. When conflicts erupt, India talks to all sides. When sanctions are imposed, India finds workarounds. When alliances shift, India balances them. This ability to remain trusted by competing powers is something no other nation has achieved at this scale in modern times. What makes this moment even more defining is that India's leadership understands timing better than anyone else. The West is divided, China's image is fading, Russia is isolated, and global institutions are in crisis. Amid all this, India stands steady, economically confident, diplomatically active, and strategically indispensable. As the next decade unfolds, this trajectory is set to accelerate. India's goal is not domination, but direction, to lead by example, not by force. By embracing multipolarity and championing inclusivity, it's quietly turning itself into the bridge that connects the world's biggest powers. So when historians look back at the 2020s, they won't just talk about crises and conflicts. They talk about how India rose from being a regional power to becoming a global architect. The world is watching, the markets are responding, and the future is being written, not in Washington or Beijing, but in New Delhi. Because in the game of global geopolitics, nations rise not by shouting, but by outsmarting. And right now, India is doing both silently, brilliantly, and unmistakably on its own terms.